Thank you so much, Senator Pittman. We appreciate that. He talked about an important conversation that we're getting ready to have right now, and that's a conversation about defending our nation's borders. Do you agree that's an important conversation? Good. So to lead the panel discussion on that, we have a wonderful panelist, somebody who's been a guest on my show, Rose Tennent. She's a radio host, political pundit, author, and speaker. She's the host of the Rose Unplugged podcast. And she's been syndicated on radio and TV for 20 years with her programs airing on iHeart, Clear Channels, Salem Radio, and Sirius XM. She's a frequent guest host on the Sean Hannity radio show. Rose has also made frequent appearances on Fox News, CNN, OAN, Newsmax, and Breitbart. She's contributed to FoxNews.com and FoxBusiness.com, as well as The American Thinker, American Spectator, and Breitbart News. She's the author of the book, Thanking Our Soldiers, a collection of inspirational stories demonstrating the generosity, kindness, and basic goodwill toward those who serve. Please welcome Rose Tennent.
And of course, I would love to introduce to you someone that has been a hero to all of us. I think you'll agree. It's a face that I'm sure you recognize. Tom Homan. Former ICE director under the Trump administration, Fox News contributor, and also now he has Border 911. How appropriate, because we are in need of help right now. So Tom, thanks for joining us today here in Harrisburg.
Hey, thanks for the invite, appreciate it.
We were out in the hallway and so many people have stopped by to thank him for the work that he's doing, because it's just a handful of people that it seems are protecting our border. So let's just give another hand to him for everything that he's been doing. Tom, one of the things that we talk about, you and I, in the past is how strong this country is, and yet, when it comes to our border, we are lacking severely in security. Why is that important? Why is it important to have a secure border?
Because you can't have national security without border security, right? You're not a country without borders. I mean, Ronald Reagan said that, but bottom line is we need to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where's coming in, why it's coming in. And when the border's open, it's a national security threat. And my biggest concern is, because we got 114,000 fentanyl overdose deaths, a drug coming across the border. You got 600% increase in sex trafficking on women and children. You've had over 400,000 children smuggled to the United States. This administration can't find 100,000 of them. You got the cartels making billions of dollars. But the scariest of all of this is the terrorism aspect. You know, the Border Patrol's arrested people from 181 different countries. Some of these countries sponsor terror. They've arrested over 340 people on terrorist watch lists just on the southwest border, twice as many on the northern border, which we never talk about. We just hit 2 million known gotaways. Caught on video, drone traffic, sensor traffic. Not a guess, they were seen crossing. There's a video, there's some sort of print, and Border Patrol couldn't respond because they're overwhelmed with this humanitarian crisis. So you got to ask yourself, why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Because you pay 2 amounts to the cartel. You pay an amount for the cartel to get you across the border, get you to the Border Patrol, the job's done. Because you're going to turn yourself in and get released, right? You got to pay a hell of a lot more if you want to get to Chicago, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, New York. So 2 million people said, I know I'm going to pay more. I don't want to be released in 24 hours. I don't want a free airline ticket to the city of my choice. I don't want a free hotel room. I don't want 3 squares a day. I don't want free medical attention. I don't want the work authorization you're going to give me. I don't pay more to get away. Why do you think that is? They don't want to be fingerprinted. They don't want to be vetted. So that's just scared the hell out of everybody. That's the thing that scares me the most. I am convinced terrorists have crossed this border in Joe Biden. I don't know how many, but someday we're going to find out. It's going to be a bad day for America.
Exactly. And how else do we find out? I mean, what do we do with the gotaways right now? I mean, what do we do with the new administration?
You got to get the hell out of power. You got to get President Trump back in the White House, what you need to do.
You skimmed over a few things that I know are very important to you because it breaks your heart. You've told me stories about the children that have been trafficked, the children that have been molested. We talked about fentanyl before, how it is destroying our children. There are children that are affected on both sides of this border. And yet, so this is a humanitarian crisis, and yet it is not treated as such. It's become so political and so divisive where it should not be. We're talking about human lives here.
It shouldn't be a partisan issue at all. like I said, there's been over 400,000 children smuggled into the United States through the cartels. And we know these children are being abused. Throughout my career, I've talked to young girls as young as 9 years old, 9, who were raped multiple times by members of the cartels. And when you talk to a 9-year-old and you see that her belief in decency is gone, everything innocent's been ripped from her, her life will never be the same. It turns your stomach. This little girl's never going to be the same. And this happens every day. While I'm talking to you all right here, there are ladies being raped by the cartels. You know, this Doctors Without Borders did a study said 31% of women that make that journey get sexually assaulted. If 31% of women admitted they got sexually assaulted, how many got sexually assaulted? So look, and while we're talking right now, women are being sexually assaulted by the cartels. A child will die today on the border. And women and children will be sex trafficked across the border. People need to understand, you said it in the very beginning, we're the strongest nation on earth, and we no longer have operational control of our southern border. There are criminal cartels in Mexico control our border. This is not my opinion. You talk to any chief patrol agent at Border Patrol, one chief patrol agent used the term broken arrow. He said, Tom, I can't contain what's coming across the border, maybe 10%. Because the cartels, they send these caravans just don't happen from nowhere. The cartels decide, they put these groups together, they send them across part of the border, because on any given day, on average, 70% of agents are no longer on patrol because you're dealing with humanitarian crisis. So then the cartels will send a big group through one area, knowing whatever's left, that 30% are going to seize upon that opportunity because there's going to be a lot of medical issues there, right? So that's when they move the fentanyl. That's when they sex traffic women and children, and that's when they're going to move the terrorists. That's when they move the gang members, the people that don't want to be vetted. So they have operational control over the southern border, and this administration handed it to them because we handed, under the Trump administration, we handed them the most secure border in this nation's history, and they destroyed it on purpose. Joe Biden's the first president in history of this nation. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president I worked for, even Clinton, Obama, took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have national security without border security. Joe Biden's the first president in history of this nation who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. Think about that.
Wow.
It's treasonous, what he's done.
You mentioned gangs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the last thing I read was MS-13 is in about 48 of our states right now. Yeah. And we've been learning that a lot of the crime that's taking place, a lot of theft, are tactics that they have taught immigrants coming across the border. So what kind of, I mean, you're worried about terrorists, and we all are, but even on a smaller level, is it smaller? We've got the threat of gangs, and they are instructing others on how they do things.
In the last decade, if you look at Border Patrol stats over the last decade, right around 18 to 20% of everybody Border Patrol apprehends is a convicted criminal. In the last 3 years, the Border Patrol has arrested over 100,000 convicted criminals trying to come to the country. 126 of them convicted of murder. So President Trump wasn't wrong when he says some bad people come across the border. No, they're all not public safety threats, but many are. He got it right. So look, and you got to ask yourself again, the 344 people on terrorist watch list, why did they get arrested? Well, obviously they're morons because the terrorists are trained how to invade law enforcement. Right. So it's really about the ones that got away. These are people that want to be fingerprinted. And people, but they don't understand that. When we say vetting, the vetting is only as good as the information we have access to. We got 30,000 Chinese males of military age across the border in this administration. How do we vet them? Do you think China's giving us information on who these people are? No. Venezuela, Syria, Turkey, you think any of these countries are giving us information on who these people are? No. Most terrorists in this world have no record. Unless they're encountered on a battlefield by the DOD and taken a retina scan, or unless they're part of a T3 investigation, we don't know who they are. So you can vet them all you want. When Border Patrol arrested them, they'll put them through NCIC, so unless they have a criminal record here, we don't know, right? And some countries, like, England and other countries, don't have sophisticated systems, but most of the countries coming across this border, there's no system to check their criminal history. So unless they've been arrested here, the vetting's going to be, can't find anything, let them in.
How did Remain in Mexico work? And is that something we should take another look at? Not that we will during this administration, but shouldn't we?
Remain in Mexico is a game changer.
Yeah.
That was the biggest game changer in the Trump administration. I'll tell you exactly how it worked. Because we're sitting in the Oval Office, as President Trump, when we're explaining to him how this all works and why they keep coming. And I explained to them 2 different data points. I said, these people come across and they claim asylum. But the threshold, the first interview by the board show or by CIS when they're down there, the thresholds are very low because they don't accidentally send somebody home to be persecuted by the home government. First of all, asylum is you're escaping fear and persecution from your home government, your state government, because of race, religion, political affiliation, or participation in a specific social group. Like if you're from Iraq and you're homosexual, you need to fear your government.
Right.
So when we explained to President Trump over the last decade, it shows nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts. They simply don't qualify or they don't show up. So then his second question was, I remember this meeting exactly, he says, well, what happens to that 9 out of 10 order removed? Well, based on court data, 9% leave. 9. Wow. If they're a family group, 6. If they're a child, 3.
Huh.
So he looked at me and said, then why do we keep releasing them? If we know most of them don't qualify, why release them? Because they don't leave. So that's where Remain in Mexico came into play. He said, they can claim asylum, but they're going to wait in Mexico. And when they have a hearing, they lose, guess what? We don't have to go find them. So it was a game changer. You can still claim asylum. And if you win your case, welcome. But it just stopped the catch and release. And when it took about 3 months under that program, and they stopped coming. Because they know they don't qualify, so they weren't going to sell everything they own to give it over to the cartels to get raped or assaulted or possibly drowned in a river just to be sent home. They said, never get into the United States, so they stopped coming. And if they really escaped fair persecution, they would have kept coming. But again, 9 out of 10 really, they want to come for a better life. They want to come for a job. I get that.
Right.
That's not asylum.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, well, Homan, you kind of, these people are just looking for a better life. And why are you so strict on it? Because when you cause a crisis this big where people are coming for a better life, it overwhelms the Border Patrol again. And when you overwhelm the Border Patrol, all the other bad things happen. So there's a right way to come to this country, and there's a wrong way to come to this country.
I have to ask you because you brought up President Trump, and it does seem like you two have a really great relationship. When you first met him, when you started working with his administration, what were some of your first thoughts about him? Very curious, wanting to understand more about the border?
I'm close. I was with him last night. I was at Mar-a-Lago last night with President Trump, and that's why I'm tired. I haven't slept. I first met him was on Air Force One. A quick story. So I decided to retire when Hillary Clinton was running against Trump. I was convinced Hillary was going to win. I said, no damn way I'm going to spend another 4 years after 8 years Obama. So I decided to retire. And so I accepted a job making about 3 times as much money as I did at 3rd Command Ice. So I decided I'm out. So I gave him 120 days notice because I was convinced. Anyways, we all know having Trump won. My wife asked me next morning, she said, now what the hell are you going to do? You already know it's retirement. But I had to leave because I already signed the contract, right? So at my retirement party in January, I was actually at the retirement party, and it was the saddest day of my life because that was the day you can put your badge and gun on the shelf. You're never going to carry it again. And any of you out in law enforcement or military, that day you leave that became your life, it was the saddest day of my life. Wow. So at the end of the ceremony, me and my wife were staying in the hall shaking hands, and someone came up to me and said, Secretary John Kelly's on the phone. He needs to speak to you right now. So my wife looks at me and said, what's that about? I said, this DHS Secretary probably saying congratulations. So I get up in my empty office because my stuff's already boxed up sitting at home. This is on Friday. I want to start my new job Monday. It was John Kelly. He says, Tom, I know this is bad timing, but the President of the United States wants you to stay and run the agency. And I said, sir, it's bad timing. I just retired. And he said, no, you didn't. I didn't sign the paper sitting here on my desk. It's a true story. So I said, well, sir, with all due respect, I got to talk to my family. I already signed this contract. I don't know what my implications are, legal implications. I already signed the contract. It's supposed to start Monday. And I can't do this without talking to my wife and kids. I say, my wife and kids, I've moved them so many times. I've had protective details around them because of death threats against my kids and my wife. And it's just, I felt they had enough. And I said, I got to talk to my family about this. I got to talk to this company. Can you give me till Monday morning? And John Kelly says, okay, 0600 Monday morning, I need an answer. I said, okay. He says, but before you leave, I want to leave you with something. And I remember this word for word. I actually wrote it in my book. He says, Tom, the President of the United States is asking you, a career law enforcement officer, to serve your country a little bit longer. He needs your help. Talk to you on Monday. So I went home with that.
Yeah, what are you going to say to that?
So on my way home, my wife says, what was the phone call about? And I told her, and she goes, hell no. What are you doing? She goes, you go about to make 3 times as much money, no more death threats, no more security details, we get a normal life. And she goes, plus I don't like him. She didn't like Trump.
Oh.
And caveat that, she loves him now because she saw what he did to this country. Yeah. So she's his biggest fan. So after a weekend of fighting, I called the company to come and say, yeah, go ahead and do it because you'd be worth more to us as a director, not just number 3. So Sunday night, I'm laying in bed with my wife. She goes, what are you going to do? I said, what do you think I'm going to do? She goes, you're going to go. I says, that's who I am. And she goes, I know it. And she supported me. So next day, I said yes. So they said, all right, we'll shut your phone off. The White House going to announce it, and they did. And of course, I shut my phone off. Next morning, I got up, and it was there's just too many. Shut it down. So I showed up in the ICE office the following morning to amazement of hundreds of people who just gave me a gift 3 days later because I was leaving. So I walk in my office, and there's a group of ethics attorneys with a list of every gift I got. I don't know where the hell they got it from. They had every gift I got, including a $500 gift certificate my wife got. And I begged them, let me write you a check because I'm not going to ask her for that check because she's already pissed off. I'm sitting here today. So we did it. Next morning, I'm on Air Force One, the greatest president of my lifetime, Donald Trump. Oh. And I'll tell you about President Trump. I walked in, when I was on Air Force One, Secret Service came and got me in the back and said, the president wants you in his office. So I walked in the office, sat down, and he, of course, the first time we met. And he goes, heard a lot of good things about you. I'm glad you took the job. I said, yes, sir. I said, what are my marching orders? He goes, do your job that you haven't been able to do the last 8 years. Go do your job. And that was it. We split a sandwich, and that was it. We sat and chatted. But what I tell you about President Trump, look, I say this all the time. I've never met a man, other than my father, who loves this country more. I'm telling you, he does. And we've had many conversations. He wants the America I grew up in. I don't recognize this America.
No.
Where I grew up in a small town, farming country outside of Fort Drum, New York, everybody had an American flag on their front porch. Everybody respected the police. That's why I became a police officer. My father was a policeman. My grandfather was a policeman. The country is different, and that's the country Donald Trump wants. He wants America to be great again. He wants us to be, and I love the guy. And people always say, well, he says some stupid things sometimes. Yeah, okay. If you're looking for perfection in your next president, then wait for the second coming of Jesus. Because I never met a man who's perfect. And I've said this in every speech I said. I promise him he comes back, I come back.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
In a minute.
And I want to know one thing too. I love it. Every time I have him on my show, I'll say, how you doing today? Because I woke up pissed off. And you say that all the time because you're mad. But let me ask you, what will you do day one? Day one, I want to know.
I'm going to run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen.
I just got chills. I did. I got chills.
Reminds me of, I got to tell you a story real quick. So about 3 years ago, Washington Post did a hit piece on me, because they all do. My wife asked me all the time, to bother you half the country hates you? I said, I don't give a shit. What do you think about me? I'm sorry for the, my wife tells me to stop swearing. Anyways, they did a hit piece, and the first line of the story was Tom Homan deports people, and he's really good at it. So my wife comes running down my office, goes, look at this, what they did to you here. Look at this hit piece. Well, let me tell you something. That's in a frame on my office wall. I wear it as a badge of honor.
I love it.
We are. And people say, well, that's a racist thing to say. That's, what a terrible thing. You guys should build concentration camps. That's just a bunch of crap.
Yeah,
right?
True. Yeah.
When you have the largest illegal immigration crisis on the southern border, where 9 out of 10 will be ordered removed, if you don't remove them, you're never going to fix the problem. There needs to be consequences for entering this country illegally.
Oh, so let's talk about that. We have a little more than a minute. Let me ask you about that. If we don't see a change in our administration, if we don't see a Donald Trump in office, what are our hopes for this country?
I tell you, it's so screwed up right now with all the millions of people that are released in the United States. I said this on air the other day in network. It says, for the millions of people being illegally released in the United States, I got a message for you. Don't get comfortable, because we're coming. And I said, but look, if so much damage has been done now, it's going to take us a decade to fix this. But if they get another 4 years, I don't think we can fix it. I don't.
That's
look,
powerful.
People say, why did they do that? Why would anybody unsecure the most secure border we've ever had? They obviously see some sort of political benefit in the future, whether future Democratic voters, but I think when he signed 94 executive orders destroying everything we did, he also overturned the Trump census rule. Millions of these people will be counted as sanctuary cities next census, which is going to result in more House seats for the Dems. There's no other reason to unsecure the country. So this is the now or never this year.
It really is. It really is. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Homan, God bless him. Please keep him in your prayers. Yes.